Hello, Mixed Nutcases. Welcome to the YouTube live episode of Nutty Bites, where we will be discussing women in fiction. We're supposed to have a third guest with us today, Philippa Ballantine, but she seems to be running behind or maybe isn't making it. Not sure what happened. So if she can show up, she'll just join the call in process. Otherwise, we've got the lovely Melissa Bartell,
Hello.
aka the Bathtub Mermaid. And I will intro. Hang on. Needed to send Pip a message letting her know we were starting without her. I will intro for the MP3 feed in a moment. If you are watching on YouTube, hello, you can go to the event page. I believe there's a link somewhere, and you can ask us questions in the Q&A. I see we already have a viewer, so that's awesome. I'm going to put the YouTube page in the comment tracker, but it doesn't always work, unfortunately. So I will try to respond there. But if you go to the event page, you can go into the Q&A and you can ask us questions and leave us suggestions right there. Okay. So. Oh, there we go.
I am there. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties.
No, that's totally fine. Perfect timing. I was just about to start the intro for the MP3 feed.
Okay. I'm here. Yay!
YouTube land. There we go. Pip has joined us.
Hello, people.
Hello.
Okay, so let me start this. And just a reminder to the guests, if you need to take drinks, if you need to cough, if whatever, you can always utilize the mute button. Okay. Hello, Mixed Nutcases. This is Nuchtchas, and I've got a special episode of Nutty Bites for you. And today we're going to be discussing women in fiction. And with me, I have two fantastic women to help me talk about this. First, I've got Miss Philippa Ballantine.
Hello.
And I've got Melissa Bartell with me.
Hello.
So we're going to be discussing women in fiction, but in this episode, because I'm going to come back to this a couple of times, we're going to really talk about the idea of girl books and boy books, or books written for women, and how that works. I think I can pretty much guess that most of us here on the panel don't really believe there's such a thing as girl books or boy books.
I think that's fair to say.
Definitely.
But unfortunately, it seems that that is something that we keep getting told is out there, and the way that marketing is working. So let's start with just a little introduction and why I picked both of you ladies. So we're going to start with Pip. You are an author and a librarian, so you've got two perspectives that you bring to the table.
Uh-huh.
So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself if they don't know for some reason.
Oh, okay. I'm Philippa Ballantine. I was originally from New Zealand. I've been in America about 5 years now. So I wrote fantasy, the Books of the Order series, and I write steampunk, adventure, The Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences with my husband T. And yeah, I've been well, it's been 5 years since I've been a librarian, but I'm always a librarian in my heart.
Excellent. And Melissa is also a writer and a journalist. And why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction?
Oh, well, I've been a blogger forever. I'm a voracious reader, and I also run a book review blog called Bibliotica.
Ding.
So right now, my review queue is like 43 books long, and that takes me through March.
Excellent. So let's first talk a little bit about the first time you realized there was a concept of girl books and boy books.
I don't think I really did until I heard someone else go, well, this is like chick lit, or this is women's fiction, and I was going, no, it's just a book.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing when I was like a teenager growing up, I was feeding off my dad's book collection. So they were just books to me. My dad shared them with me. He seemed to like them. And interestingly enough, he's gone more into what some people might call girl books. Laurel K. Hamilton, paranormal, fantasy, urban fantasy, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I don't. I guess maybe when I was a librarian, some people might ask for, I want a romance book, but I never really thought of them as girl or boy books.
Yeah. Well, I had a very similar experience. Growing up, I come from a very large family, so we had a bit of a large house, and on the landing of one of the stories of the house, my dad and we had built shelves just thick enough for paperbacks, and they were like 15 or 20 going up the wall, all on the landing. So we had like this awesome library in the house. And you'd finish reading a book, and you'd go downstairs and you'd grab one. And it was broken up a little bit. The sci-fi and the fantasy were over towards the hall leading towards the bathroom, and then the classics were in the main section. But that's about all that we had broken up.
You didn't have any pink books or blue books?
No, there were no pink books, there were no blue books, there were no girl books, there were no boy books. So
funny how that works.
Yeah, so that's how I selected most of what I would read, is I would just go finish a book, bring it back, pick out another one. And it wasn't until I don't remember if I was doing book reports or if I was reading a book in school or something, and someone's like, aren't those boy books? Why are you reading that? And it's like, that's what boys read. And I'm like, what? I just was completely baffled, and it didn't make sense to me. And there's a story that I want to share from my husband, which he has told me millions of times, and it's very important. Is when he was growing up, and he was was into the stage, he heard about the series, The Babysitter Club, and he was, I am all into that. I babysit, so it's for me. All these people I know in my class are reading them, so I want to read them. And he went to the library and he asked for the Babysitters Club, and he would get it and all the other stuff. And then when it was time to do a book report, he said he wanted to do it on the Babysitters Club, and someone said, "Those are girl books." Huh? You can't read that. You're a boy. He was like, but I'm a babysitter.
That's a great story.
They're books for me. I don't understand. And then I can talk to the girls about them, and the people that I know that are reading them. And he basically got teased for reading these books that were on his grade level about a topic he was interested in, and most of his friends were reading.
Oh, the poor guy. That's not fair.
Yeah.
And I think once you get that bit of you're not supposed to read it because of your gender, it's a little intimidating, especially considering they've done so many studies about how there's a certain age in school that young men stop reading for some reason.
Yeah.
It's sad. I mean, I went to an all-girls school, so I didn't have anybody telling me that.
Well, that's good.
So that was a plus. But yeah, I think, I mean, we've got an 11-year-old daughter, and she just loves to read, and I haven't noticed anything that's like it's a boy book, it's a girl book. She's like, it's got dragons in it, it's got cats in it. I'm in.
Sounds good to me. Yep. I've got many nieces and nephews, but one of my nieces is very much into what the stores would define as boy books or whatever. But she's also into very supposedly girly things. So, dragons, awesome. Does it have unicorns too? Cool. She's grown up always wanting to be a Sith princess. My favorite thing is she giggled when Alderaan blew up. She thought that was the funniest thing.
It was hilarious. Unless she lived there.
And so,
just really lucky because I grew up mostly reading the classics that were around my grandparents' house,
which is awesome.
And then by the time I was in school, we were all reading things like Stephen King, which doesn't really have a gender anyway.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, interestingly, I read a bunch of stuff from New Zealand. Tended to get British stuff, so I would read things like The Famous Five and The Secret Seven and all of that sort of stuff. And they had some, I mean, looking back on them, they had some dodgy stuff about girls. The girl in The Famous Five should be making tea, and buttering sandwiches. But there was also the girl who was like, I've got a dog, I'm going to go and have, adventures. So, because I used to spend a lot of time with my grandma, so I would also read stuff from the 50s and 60s that my mother had read. But yeah, I don't know whether I feel like the whole thing about boy books and girl books is really, I feel like it's about the romance genre.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot, because I'm actually, T and I are going to the RT convention, which is the big romance writers convention in Vegas in a couple of months. And it's very interesting to see the different demographics that go to that convention. I think T might be one of 4 guys that might be there.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Well, and even when men do write romance, they're encouraged by.
Uh-oh.
Yes, uh-oh.
Did I lose you? Did
No,
we lose her? She's coming back.
I'm
Yay.
back. Sorry about that. This has been happening today, and I don't know what's going on. But every now and then, basically, Google Chrome says, "Oh, snap! I can't load it."
That's
The
too
good
much
news
for
is
you.
It's not us.
Hey, no, it's not you guys. It's
Yeah, we're talking amongst ourselves when you go.
So male romance writers are often encouraged by publishers to go by a female pseudonym.
Yeah.
And one of the mixed nuts, Mark Hunter, is a romance author, and he was like, "Nope, I'm going to use my real name," and he's doing pretty well with that, which is awesome.
Mhm.
And but it's very interesting to me that it's like, oh no, you need to have a female name.
Yeah, last year we picked up an award at the RT convention, but also there was 2 guys that won an award, and everyone was like, yeah! It was sort of the opposite of girl power. It was like, yeah, boy power and romance.
Yeah, well,
It's really cool,
and
though.
we see the same thing in science fiction. When a woman's writing in science fiction or crime or mysteries, suddenly she's encouraged to go down to initials.
Yes, yeah.
Cozy.
To mask her gender. Which drives me crazy. The idea that science fiction and horror and things like that are supposed to be very male, yet it's an entire genre that was created by a teenage girl.
That's right.
Actually, I pitched something to them like a decade ago, and they were like, "Well, you're a woman, so 1 strike, and it's science fiction, and nobody's reading that anyway." And I'm like, "Yeah, they are."
People haven't ever stopped reading science fiction.
Not that I'm aware, no. I mean, like anything, there's fads and trends and stuff, but, I think the genre is not going anywhere.
No, I really don't think so. I mean, there's definitely people that will say, "Oh, I don't read sci-fi." Oh, no. But
guess what I'm going to be working on in the next couple of months? Science fiction.
Exactly. But if you look at books and media and TV and movies, sci-fi is all over the place.
Oh,
And
The Expanse is awesome.
Oh, I love that show.
Which one was that? I missed it.
The Expanse.
Oh, I haven't caught that yet.
Oh, you should. And the thing I like about that is the writing team, that 2 guys that write it together, the books, actually got invited to write for the show, and they came into the writer's room, and they were allowed.
That's awesome.
And I was like, that's my dream.
Well, that's what George R.R. Martin got to do. Well, it was part of the contract for the Game of Thrones series, which I really loved. Except last season, he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to focus on my books." But that was awesome because you knew that the highlight of the season was going to be a Martin-written episode.
Yes.
So, yeah, the publishers definitely are the ones that seem to want to push this idea. And I can't remember who it is, but one of my friends is always talking about how much he hates splitting genres, creating genres for books. They're all books. They're all literary. So, what's the difference between literature and sci-fi? Nothing. And it feels like the publishers and the marketing teams are really trying to push that this is for teenagers, this is for girls, this is for housewives, you know.
The argument between what's YA and what isn't is a whole nother show.
Yes.
Yes. But it's almost like, are the publishers shooting themselves in the foot by trying to break things up by gender, or is it actually working for them?
I don't know if anything in publishing is working as well as it should be.
That's fair.
This is very
That's
true.
fair.
I don't know. I know that when they do the cover art, they're aiming for a particular, like, I mean, they brought out Harry Potter in different versions for when they suddenly worked out that grown people were reading it.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the YA is very friendly to female writers, and they don't seem to have to hide themselves quite as much.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know. You can tell usually, but for me, it's usually the covers. You can tell who they're kicking it towards. If I see pink and purple, I know who I'm supposed
Yeah, well,
to.
that's a dead giveaway. And if you see a woman doing the boobs and butt pose,
Yes.
yeah. Who was it that was doing recreations of covers with himself?
Oh, Jim C. Hines.
Yes.
Those were fantastic.
It was funny because he did one of our very first ministry cover, which is not my favorite cover.
Yeah.
And so he did that, and then T did one. We gender flipped it, and
Yep.
T did.
Yeah, because you guys did it because you're like, you did it, but you didn't make enough fun of it.
No.
There's
So we
so
actually-
much more.
He ended up in a charity calendar for that, so he's now
Oh,
a
that's
calendar
great.
girl.
Oh, that's great.
I love it.
But yeah, I think because I used to work as a bookseller as well,
I've
back
done
in
that.
the dim dark days, and I think a lot of what they do for that is to help. It used to be when there were bookstores to help them know where to put it. You know, what to group it with. Let's put all the purple and pink together and draw the
Nobody
girls.
ever came, at least when I was working in a bookstore, nobody ever came in and said, "Where's your women's fiction?" They would
Yes.
say, I saw this book on Oprah, and I don't remember the title, but it was last week, and it was blue.
It was blue.
Like, yeah, all the blue books are on that wall.
It's a problem for librarians and booksellers alike. It was a blue book. What was it? But yeah, so a lot of that sort of marketing sort of side of things is very artificial.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of that they put constraints on the book. But I don't know. I feel like there's a maturity of science fiction and fantasy, particularly because a variety of different people are writing stuff and writing a lot of diversity and stuff that I'm really enjoying. And I don't feel like that's. I know there are some butthurt men that are like, oh, you're ruining it with getting your ovaries in my fantasy science fiction. But it's also, but I think it's improving the genre because it's making it more realistic to have more complex characters that are reflecting people around us. You know,
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
and I don't think that makes it man or woman. I've told this story about my dad, who he started off like right in the what they call the golden age of science fiction, you know, reading Asimov and all of that sort of stuff, and then he is now reading exclusively women. And he said, I asked him about it, and he was like, I don't read men anymore. They don't write good enough characters.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, he's just he really because he reads to get inside a character's head and enjoy the adventure with them.
Yeah.
And if it's all just about I'm just going to drive my big ship and shoot another ship, he's not interested in that.
Yeah. No, I can definitely relate there. I mean, because for me, I really want to care about the character.
Yeah.
If
wanna
if
be
it's just the action, I don't care.
Yeah. So, I'm really, really enjoying seeing people getting more complex. I think it's really good for guys as well to read that sort of stuff because it tells them it's okay to, you know, feel different things.
Yeah.
I'm getting very philosophical now. I don't even have a break.
Well, your discussion with your father reminds me of a discussion I had with my brother-in-law years ago, like at least 10 years ago. And he was telling me about a book that he was reading, and he's like, I really enjoyed it, but I felt like I was reading a D&D campaign. And then I looked up the author online, and I found out, yes, I am reading a D&D campaign. And he said, well, that was kind of neat. But we started getting into things. I think that author was a woman, and he said, it's very rare that I pick up a fantasy book written by a woman. I don't read fantasy written by women because I don't like how it is. And I said, really? Okay, so what is it? And we're trying to get into the nitty gritty of it. And he's saying, and I feel bad about that. And he says, but it just doesn't speak to me. And I said, well, that's totally not true. And he's like, how can you say that? And I said, well, because I know you read Weiss and Hickman. And he goes, oh, well, that doesn't count. And according to him, Weiss was the male and Hickman was the female in the way that they wrote. And I'm like, I think that's a compliment. And he's like, oh, it's totally a compliment.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I enjoy writing with my husband, and we haven't killed each other yet, so I think we complement each other in a lot of different ways. And I just feel like science fiction and fantasy has become a lot more in depth and in a wonderful way,
Well, and I think what we figured out, and I think what it comes down to is that, especially 10 years ago and earlier, when you thought of fantasy and female or male authors, female fantasy was Mercedes Lackey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And male fantasy was everything else. It was Bob Salvatore. And stuff
He
like
was
that.
it. That was it.
Pretty much true.
And that trained people, because who is the most known, on what do they call that house? Who was a household name of a female that would write fantasy, and it would be Mercedes Lackey.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, that's probably it's also volume as well. I mean,
Volume has to do with it.
Yeah. But I think now we're getting into a time when there's so many more authors and there's more names to go to, because instead of, yes, the publishing contracts are not as good for authors these days, but more authors have the means to get published now. There's so many that are self-published, and we've heard the self-published success stories that get picked up by New York Publishing. We have one right here. And then, but even those who are self-publishing and refuse the New York publishers because they're just doing too well, I think there's just so many more authors out there that you really can't say, this is how women write and this is how men write.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, like back in 70s, 80s, there were only a few names to go to as far as women, if you knew they were women.
Yeah.
Because my favorite author, C.J. Cherry, I always say Shira because her name is Cherry, but she put an H on. Anyway, I didn't know she was a woman for a while, for a long time.
I didn't either.
Yeah, and then I found she's also one of my dad's favorite authors. So yeah, I think there's just more women writing out there, and also I think talking about romance. Romance is a huge part of the publishing world. It's like 60, some huge amount of the books that are bought.
Always been the best selling.
Yeah.
I've found in what I've been reading and reviewing lately that romance has also gotten a lot more complex recently.
Yes.
And
yeah.
There have been times when I've been handed a title and at the end I'll go, wait, this is Silhouette? No way.
Yeah, the big trend in romance right now is romantic suspense. So you've got your romance and maybe your hanky-panky, but you've also got some action happening, some sort of drama going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot more complex than it used to be as well.
And not all romance is sex. That's the other thing. Like, I remember when I was a kid, if you read romance, there were going to be sex scenes in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we've got a larger spectrum. There's the romance where it's all just emotional romance. Then there's romance with some sex. And then there's full-blown erotic.
Yeah. Well, Irish romance apparently is a big thing.
Wait, what?
No, yeah, it is. It's its own
You haven't
subgenre.
caught on to Amish romance?
No, I have not caught on to Amish romance.
I was at Steampunk Unlimited, and one of the ladies there, she writes steampunk, but she also her other big seller is Amish romance, and I was so curious about it, I had to go up to her and just almost in a rude, ethereal manner, just sort of say, "Explain to me, who's buying these?" And she said, "I said, are Amish people reading Amish romance?" And she said, "No." She said, "No, it's ladies in the Midwest."
Oh, you know what? Like now I get it actually. Thinking
Yeah.
about who's reading it, it's the idea of the super restrictive lifestyle and
It's
kind of
prairie
breaking
porn.
free of that. Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, and also the interesting thing, because I'd never been to a romance convention, was that I was surprised at a couple of things. They were so welcoming. I mean, T and I wrote steampunk, and it has romantic elements in it, but it's not actually romance. I wouldn't categorize it as romance. But they're so accepting. They're like, "Oh yeah, you come on into the pool." And sometimes in science fiction circles, not so much with the acceptance. I
Yeah,
don't.
well, there's a lot of, this is my clubhouse, and I have to, a lot of gatekeeping.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
definitely a lot of gatekeeping, especially with the old guard.
yeah. I feel like if there was somebody who was writing, like, say, a science fiction romance, and they came to a science fiction convention, they wouldn't get as warm a welcome.
No, I agree.
I agree.
Yeah,
And
I think that, and it's unfortunate because it's a genre that's supposed to be very accepting.
yes.
And some of the classics have some steamy things going on in it,
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's some great things. Yeah, yeah. So I was just interested in the breadth of romance, because my first romance novel that I read when I was 14, it had a cover with Fabio on the front, and I was
Bodice River.
I was just reading it for the hanky panky, basically, and and that was what was in my head, I guess, as far as wouldn't have thought of it as a girl book, but I would have thought, okay, that's romance. I've dipped my toe in romance. It's not for me now. I've grown up. But now actually getting to read some current romances and stuff. I mean, the story, there's an actual story there as well as romance, and
And it's not all young girls who have not done anything. It's women who have lives and jobs.
Yeah, yeah. So I think maybe sometimes some science fiction authors might want to, check it out sometime. Don't be afraid of emotion.
Well, maybe if some of those science fiction authors could open themselves up to romance, they would have more of a reason to have their characters have a romantic attraction instead of you're the only other girl in the universe.
Oh, you're not talking about basically when certain writers who say, my main character's a female. No, she's just a guy that you've dressed up as.
Yeah. A guy with boobs.
There's no mindset of a woman in there. It's just I'm writing a woman. I'm really writing me, but I'm writing a woman.
Yeah, it's the author in a dress.
Yeah.
Yes. And those sort of ones I like. Those are the only kind of books I ever want to throw. I'm usually very respectful of books, but I'm just like, ugh. Do you ever talk to women?
Do not share this. No, it's going on to whoever is watching. But I've gotten to the point finally where if something really isn't grabbing me, I've learned it's okay to not finish it.
Yes. Life's too short
to get there.
To read bad books.
Yeah,
I agree. Life is way too short for bad books, and I read so slowly that it's just not going to happen. If the book isn't grabbing me, I will stop reading it because it takes a long time. Now, if I'm listening to it, I might give it more of a shot. There's a lot of books I've listened to that I would never read.
Interesting. I'm still a print person. I'm way behind. I'm like a Neanderthal, really.
I find that audiobooks take too long for me.
Mm-hmm.
I get very impatient.
Well, you probably read faster than you listen.
I read really fast.
Yeah, me too. I love reading fast.
I read
Get more books
horribly slow, but the advantage for that for me is I remember everything I've read. So I often don't reread books because normally if I reread a book, I feel like I just read it because I remember it so much.
See,
And
that's
that if
why
I actually reread a book, it's because the words are crafted so well that I enjoy that.
It's like a
So,
tasty meal.
I have
yeah,
found there are
exactly.
some
It's like,
books that I've reread at different stages in my life and gotten different things out of.
oh yeah, yeah, I can totally get that. But for me, like when I can remember where the words are gonna go, it's distracting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Plus, there's always more new cool books to read.
there are always new cool books, and I will listen to books that I've read before.
Really?
Yeah, it's a very different experience though,
Hmm.
and I can put up with bad narration.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm very picky about my narration because the audiobook world has so many great narrators that when I listen to books like from Audible, I'm like, oh, that's terrible. Go away, go away. And some of them are really great, but some of them I'm just like, what are you thinking? That is
Do you like listening to? Do you have a preference for male or female narrators of audiobooks, or are you?
no. It depends on the story.
Yeah.
It really depends on the story. If the main character is female, I'm gonna want a female to be the narrator.
Okay.
But no, I don't really have a preference.
That's interesting.
But I don't like people that do voices that can't really do voices.
Oh,
Yeah.
Just
the
don't
voices
do a
aren't
voice.
consistent.
Oh, I'm not a fan of men trying to put on women's voices.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
don't try to be a
no.
woman. Just
We
read
know
it.
you're not. It's okay.
Yeah, just read it. But there are definitely like some narrators that I could hear read anything. I mean, for instance, Nathan Lowell, the
Mhm.
way that he reads, he doesn't do voices, but he puts the emotion in all of the voices. And listening to his what is it, Ravenwood?
Yeah.
Ravenloft? The one about the old lady? Hmm?
I think it's Ravenwood. I'm not sure.
Ravenwood, yeah. I'm terrible at remembering the little details. But it's about a female. And normally I would say I'd want a female to read that, but the way that he reads it, he never tries to sound like a woman. He
Mhm.
just has the emotion. And you hear the woman's voice in your own head in a way
That's really good
that's not him.
narration.
Yeah. So it does, it depends on the quality of the narrator, but yeah. If the narrator's just normal, then I'd prefer it to be the same gender as the main character. And don't do voices.
I think that's the way with writing as far as girl books and boy books. I just want a well-written book with a
True.
character that I want to hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily. I'm not like my dad and a total sexist towards men, but but I feel like the majority of what I read is female literature. It just tends to end up in that direction. But I finished Chuck Wendig's Zeros the other day about hackers, who is totally not me, and I really enjoyed it. It had two really good, strong female characters in there. One of them not particularly nice, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it, and I was like, okay. And he does a really great series, Blackbirds. And the main character in that is just this tough, rather sometimes unpleasant woman. And so I'm like, I don't care that Chuck's a guy. Doesn't bother me.
Well, and that's one of the things. It's like as long as the character is three-dimensional, it's a good character.
Exactly.
You can have strong female characters, and they are personally, like physically weak and being able to be pushed around. One of my examples is Sansa Stark from A Song of Ice and Fire.
Mm-hmm.
And many people will say, oh, that's not a strong female character. I'm like, no, it is.
She's absolutely strong. She's just not muscly.
Yeah, she's not Buffy.
No.
A strong female character isn't Buffy. And unfortunately,
she's a really good, strong, period character.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so many people, and often men, sometimes women, when they try to write a strong female character, they just write Buffy.
Yeah.
Without the depth, because
Yeah.
Buffy had weakness.
She did.
Um,
It's her flaws that made her more interesting.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so to me, I really want in-depth characters. I want, like I said earlier in the episode, I want to care about the character. If I don't care about the character, fine, have the aliens eat them. I don't care. But if I care about the character and I understand what's motivating the character, then I'm going to care about the series.
Yeah. I mean, I think if the two ships coming at each other and shooting at each other, there's no if there's characters on there that you care about, then there's the tension, and you're like, ooh, I got to find out what happens when these two ships come together. But if they're just a bunch of cardboard cutout characters, sort of just doing their jobs on the ship,
Who cares?
don't care.
Yeah.
Blow them all away. I don't mind. Oh, did we lose her again? She's gone.
She's frozen.
She's frozen. Let's not sing that song.
No, let's not.
Is it still recording when she's not here?
I don't know. I think so. It says live in the corner of the screen.
Okay. Hey, we're still here. So what's your favorite female character then?
I don't know. I don't really have favorites. I read so much and so fast.
Yeah.
That it's really hard for me.
Because I loved C.J. Sherry.
I read her years, but I loved reading her when it was new to me.
Yeah.
Okay, I am back.
Back.
And
We were
the
just talking about
weirdness
this.
was it didn't want to let me join the call back.
No, you cannot come in.
How
Yeah,
good of
like
it,
you're not allowed to
letting
join
you
the
into
call.
your own thing.
You're in here twice now.
I am. I'm going to get rid of the other one. Oh, I can't get rid of the other. Oh, I'm no longer in control of this. Uh-oh.
Oh, who's in control?
I don't know. Who's going
On
to
the
stop it?
upside, however, we can now see your awesome T-shirt.
Yes, you can.
That's weird. Who's in control?
I don't know. That's so strange. All right, so give me 2 seconds. I'm going to try and come. Oh, but the other one went away.
Yeah.
So
Now
are
it's
you in
just you.
control now?
Let's see. Yes, I believe I. Nope. I'm on a moderated call.
Am I in control? Who's in control?
Hmm.
I'm not in control either.
This is strange. All right, give me a second. I'm going to try and get back in control.
This is the mirror universe, isn't it?
Yes.
I hope
yes,
YouTube
it
is laughing.
It's mirror universe nutty. She's got control. Ah.
That does happen from time to time. Okay. Nimlas Studios, come on.
It's because you're on the other side of the border.
Probably.
That's what it is. It's the Canadian internet.
It must be.
I would say that's socialist internet, but you don't get free internet, right?
No, unfortunately.
That would be
Watch
awesome.
now, as her comments go crazy with people thinking we're dissing Canada.
I love Canada. I also
That's
come
really
from
funny.
New
All
Zealand.
right, so if I go to the page, it says it has a start button. I wonder what happens if I hit that start button.
Oh, dear.
Do you want to find out? What happens if we all get sucked into a void?
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Oh, jeez.
I'm going to have two open. All right, I'm about to enter. Let's see. Okay, got it. Join.
It's the second
Nope,
you
not allowed to join.
Wow, rude.
All right, so we're just gonna wing it. Hopefully we're still on YouTube. Yeah, this is what we got. Wow. All right. So what we're going to be talking about?
Two spaceships, great characters.
Oh yeah, if I don't care about the characters, the ships can explode.
Yes.
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 The aliens can have lunch.
Yeah.
So
I suppose that's plot driven, right?
well, it's more than plot because you actually have to care about the characters as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard it said that science fiction is all about the big idea and the plot is the what is happening.
Well, yeah,
Characters
I hear a
can be
lot of it's world building and it's politics.
Yes.
But if I don't care about the people living in that world and
Then you
engaging
don't
in those
care about
politics,
the
I'm not going to
politics.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're coming off the edge of a wave of a lot of people thinking that things are girl books or chick lit or whatever. And a lot of that is thanks to Twilight.
Oh yeah.
and the offshoots, and what is that? The gray one, 50 Shades of Grey and things of that nature, which is coming off of Harry Potter, which was very co-ed,
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
very gender neutral. People were reading it. It brought young adult into the mainstream, and adults realized, hey, I can read young adult, which is so much fun to read.
Yeah.
So much fun because it's
Oh, I love young adult.
it's
I think it's some
innocent.
of the most well, see it. You say it's innocent, but I think young adult, generally speaking, as a genre right now, has some of the most provocative stories going on.
Yeah, but I mean, what I mean when I say innocent, it's innocent because it's pure emotion.
Okay.
Sometimes, and you're I don't know. I feel like some fiction is so gritty and bogged down with negativity that is missing from YA. And maybe it's because the authors are trying to put in too many $5 words or something like that. I'm not sure. But YA has always been just a lot of fun for me to read.
Yeah. I'm actually writing YA at the moment, and it's a lot of fun to write. I'm writing a steampunk ministry story set before Phoenix Rising, so it's got like I wouldn't say, no, she's not me because she's smarter than I am, which is hard to write someone smarter than you. But it's a young engineering girl who's like 17 years old and doing it, and it is lots of fun, and it's interesting to try and put a little bit of your experiences as a teenager in, but also trying to do stuff that teenagers now can also experience and stuff. So
And identify with, yeah.
yeah, but it's also Victorian, so